Okay, folks, welcome. Hopefully you can see the image okay. I'm just gonna say a few hellos to, we've got Lewis, I've seen Shunyam, Lynn, Andy, Elizabeth, Leotilda, whoops, sorry, what else have we got? Ashlisha, Tracy, welcome to you. First time, I think. Heather, Nonsensical Reality, Lewis again, and Heather Houston. Excellent. Okay, so hopefully you can see the picture well. Heather's just confirmed that. So that's brilliant news. I was just a little concerned because at my end, hi to Dawn and Deborah as well. I was just a little concerned because at my end it was saying the health of the stream wasn't great, but it's looking okay at this end now. So we're good to go, I think. Yes, indeed, Ashlisha, finally, you've been waiting for this. I think you were 24 hours ahead of yourself last night, so no worries. Anyway, well, looks like we've got a good crowd with us, so that's great, and I'm sure some people will be catching up later, and as I'm sure you are all know, the focus and title of this stream is Beyond Phenomena, from awakening experiences to absolute self-realization. There's a very good reason for that title, which will become clearer and clearer, I trust, as we go through the stream. So yeah, that's kind of the essence of where, and really what I want to focus on in taking you through this tonight is to just look at, why is it that experience or experiences actually happen in the first place? You may not have even thought to ask yourself that question, but why does that happen? Why do we actually have experiences? It may seem obvious to you, but actually there's a little bit more to it than you possibly might imagine. And you'll notice the title of the stream is Beyond Phenomena. And so that's actually where I'm gonna start. Beyond Phenomena. And tonight, unusually for me, for those of you who've been to my events, I've actually prepared some slides that I'm going to put up on the screen, and I'm going to talk you through those. And the reason I've done it that way is to create a permanent kind of record on the stream of and a context for the whole thing to do with self-realization and how that beyond phenomena thing is so important to it. And so that's actually where I'm going to start. I'm not going to start with the experiences. I'm going to look right from the very source, right from the very beginning, how experience is in fact created. And to do that, we have to go to the absolute itself. We have to go to the absolute. And so that's where I'm going to start you, and we'll circle through the whole experience and then circle back. Now, to get this kind of integrated properly, what I felt would be good before I kind of dived straight in, so to speak, is to just do a fairly brief meditation just to start with, just to center ourselves, just to kind of get ourselves a little bit more centered in the essence, the silence, as I call it. Only very short, just enough to kind of just be here now. Maybe had a busy day, busy week or whatever, just be here now. And then from that space, I will go into the whole process. So I know there's a few people saying hello to each other. So welcome to the new ones on stream. I've seen Simon and probably Claire and Asha and one or two others come on. So I'm going to go straight now to a short meditation and then into the rest of the stream. So, you know, whether you want to sit down, lie down or whatever, it's going to be very, very brief, this meditation. But I feel it's important to kind of start there. It will provide a context for where I'm going to go next. Good question, Asha, and I'll come to that later if you'll let me. But the short answer is you're already there. Okay. Now, let's just close our eyes. And just simply first bring your attention to your body. Just bring all of your attention to your body. And then being open from your heart to the experience of what I will refer to as spheres of light. It's the same as the pure, universal I am presence that is non-personal. Just bring all of your attention to this state. I am, with nothing after the words I am. It is just pure being, aliveness, just the state I am. Just resting all of your attention there. And as your attention rests on this state, I am, know now that it can do so only because it is seen, sensed, or witnessed from the absolute itself, the infinite silence. This silence is the only level of awareness that can witness the pure state I am. So just allow your attention to drop, melt, merge into and as that silence. That witnesses all phenomena, including the state I am. And know that this silence, this essence that can observe the pure universal and non-personal I am. This is the very essence, the very source. Good. So your attention now more deeply centered, melting, merging there, in and as this silence. And as I bring this brief meditation to a close, I just want you to know that your attention can remain rested there. So just embrace this possibility. Trust this. And when the time is right for you, just open your eyes again. Come back to the room, the chair, the body, but just remaining with the attention rested in and as the silence. And I'll put the harp on for just about a minute, just to allow everybody to come to. I'll then come back on camera and we'll go into the rest of the stream. And there'll be another meditation, longer one later. Good. Welcome back. So I'll just give you another moment or two. Good. So just keeping your attention rested there. So in a moment, what I'm going to do is go through a series of slides that I've prepared. So you won't see me. What you will do is see the data on the screen, and I'll be talking through that. If you're watching on a laptop, you should be able to see this fine. If you have it absolutely full screen, it might just be a little blurry at the edges, but it'll be absolutely fine. If it's on a smartphone, it might be a little bit small. But that's anyway, we'll see how we get on with that. There are 4 slides, and I'm going to start in a moment with the first one of those. what came to me as I was talking about this sense absolute, rather than it just being theoretical for you, what perhaps would be helpful is if I just to go somewhere I don't normally go, which is to talk about the experienceless experience, the experienceless experience, or the remembrance, the recognition that occurred in this form. And I'll do that as I go to the slide. Just a couple of quick more hellos to Lee, Alkalize, to Realize, and Sandy. So let's go there now. So as the realization, let's put it this way, emerged, there was no form, no body, no sense of a person. Just simply pure awareness that was aware that it was aware. Eternity. Boundlessness. Timeless. Formless. Knowingness. Beyond phenomena, the first two words of the title of this dream. No time, no space, no phenomena. Because there was no person to experience. Just knowing. Just knowing. It's unequivocal, this awareness. The recognition, remembrance, the realization that one, the infinite one, has always been and always will be this. Beyond doubt. Just simply pure awareness. You could say absolute consciousness is simply energy aware of itself. Absolutely infinite in every sense. And it would be accurate to say this was eternity, is eternity. Yet, at some point, let's say, we're using words here to describe that which is beyond words. This whatever this was, suddenly two words emerged from that infinite consciousness. And those two words were infinite silence. At that same point, the form that you know as Philip heard, let's say, or was, maybe even more accurate, these words. You are that too. The knowingness that all was that was absolute, is absolute. The awareness of the body form, let's say, emerged or maybe even re-emerged with the absolute knowing that actually it never was the body. The body was just simply a gift, if you like, from that space in order, and I'll go into this in the other slides shortly, to create, to experience itself. So any words that I'm using to describe this are only at best a pointing, a signpost, an indicator. But if you're open to it within those two words, infinite silence, there's almost like an energetic signature, a frequency carrier, a messenger that can transport you to that space. And part of the many awarenesses that, let's say, emerged in this form was that it, the infinite silence, had chosen to use these two words as a vehicle to communicate that realization in the apparent form. It had chosen this. And so looking at the words on the slide, I've used some of them already. We can see, even if it's not yet experiential, that this absolute is beyond phenomena. There's no experiencer to experience. There is no time. There is no space. It's absolute. This is the self, sometimes referred to as isness, sometimes referred to as source, knowingness, absolute consciousness, all those words on the left-hand side. Another signpost from that, let's say, is the words at the bottom left there. Very carefully selected, let's say. All that I am is. The key word there is. All that am I. Infinite silence is. Just is. Nothing else. Just is. Another pointing word, top right, insatiation. You won't find insatiation in the Oxford English Dictionary, unless they happen to have been to my website. what it was saying was this: it's the inner sensationless sensation, self-aware, non-personal energy, beyond experience. Just looking at a question there: can there be an experience even when there's no experiencer? This is almost impossible to answer the question. The description would go with, it's actually referred to also, this way of putting it, in the book I referred you to, Dawn, Tantra, the Supreme Understanding. And it's a bit more like a kind of an experiencing, but this isn't an experiencing of things. It's really the knowingness. And if we were to look deeply into it, as the words infinite silence emerged, at that point, just focusing the attention there now, a few things were observed as the re-emergence, let's say. It was all happening at once. The vaguest memory at that point of the body or the form of Philip. Let's say, started to emerge there. Yeah, this is beyond the dictionary, as I say, from the Book of Mere Dad. Words at best are an honest lie. Silence at worst is a naked verity. And I also say, in silence, you will realize your truth. And in truth, you will realize you are silence. In truth, it's also the only way that this will emerge. Good, okay. I'm glad that kind of picks it up for you for now, then. So just looking at this slide a bit further, you can see, hopefully, on your screen, I've put 3 infinity symbols on. And the reason I've put 3 on will become clear as the slide builds. But just take this slide now as a representation. It is only a representation, a metaphor for this absolute. I love Dawn's questions too, by the way, Ashley Shaw. They're great. So this white space, this infinite space, I've put 3 infinity symbols on there. Let's just take that as a representation of the absolute, beyond limit, beyond form. I know it's on 2 dimensions and it has limitations, but let's just use that as an example for now. And the reason I've put 3 on will become a little bit clearer in a moment. So this is the energy field, the total awareness of the absolute. And I've just put some words on here just to kind of summarize it using signposts or pointings. So we now go to the next slide. And there's a bit more appeared here now. So you'll see now a golden coloured, it's a circle, but just take it to represent a sphere. I can only do it in 2 dimensions. So let's just take this golden circle to represent a sphere. Now, you'll remember when I was talking about the emergence of the form in the realization, if I was to articulate this in a broader sense, then one could say there's a divine thought or inspiration. And I've put it, just to choose some words, as let there be spheres of light. Hi to Jolene, by the way. So let there be spheres of light. This, if you like, this spheres of light, the energy I referred to in the meditation, this term was also chosen by the silence to represent what might be referred to as the firstborn of the silence, the pure state I am, the pure state I am, that is completely non-personal. There's nothing after the words I am. I am equals being. This state is very, very pure, and the silence referred to it in various ways. One is in the top right there, was a Genesis meditation. A Genesis meditation. Genesis meaning beginning. In the beginning. This state, if you like, from this space, direct connection, if you like, it touches, so to speak, as I've put on the slide, the edge of silence. If this term does not make any sense, don't try and make any sense of it. But let's say this is bounded by, not that there are any boundaries, is almost infinite within the infinite essence of the silence itself. This occurs, this phenomena of spheres of light, this state I am, occurs within the field. Occurs within the field of the infinite. It's pure beingness. And in truth, actually, you could say there are many spheres, hence the term spheres as opposed to sphere. Many dimensions, many possibilities, unlimited. And yet it's referred to also, you could say, pure universal being, or I am presence. Also, it referred to, the silence again pointed it as referring to as the golden egg. And in the Hindu tradition, which I know Ashleisha comes from, there's a term that's also used for this called Hiranya Garbha. You might want to look that up. I have anglicised the pronunciation. Hiranya Garbha. Now this sphere, as I say, just by limitations of the paper, it's meant to kind of fill it, but because I need to fit other things on, it doesn't. So it touches, if you like, the edge of silence. What's Dawn saying here? Is the pure beingness a sort of slight contraction of the silence? Yes. It's the purest version of that, if you like, Dawn. The purest. This is why I refer to it as the firstborn. It's the first appearance of some kind of phenomena, and which is why I've got the word phenomena on there. It's a necessary step It's part of the Trinity, actually, infinite silence, being, and form. More on that later, perhaps. Just looking at Jolene's comment, for me, it was like everything and nothing. Maybe I could use the words pure peace too. The words I got was infinite consciousness. If you imagine space, I wasn't space, I was space. Yeah, so this is all kind of excellent awarenesses. So thank you for sharing that, folks. So I wanted to focus on this a little bit, so I'm just going over this quite a lot because it's quite important, this step, to understand what's going to come next. Is it impermanent? Well, the only thing that is permanent is the absolute, or silence itself. The only thing that is permanent is the absolute, or silence itself. So hopefully that answers your question, Dawn. So I'm going to move on now to the next slide. Quite a lot more is going to appear here now, folks. Now, before I click through, there's going to be 2 more circles appear. But for the purposes of representation, before I go there, what I've done is I've drawn these 2 other circles out of what it really more effectively would be nested spheres, spheres within spheres, in other words. But I've drawn them out for the purposes of being able to see it. So you'll see now 2 more spheres appearing. Really, as I say, these other 2 spheres are nested within the I am sphere. Indeed, all spheres of life and light are nested within the silence, the I am, and then at various levels of consciousness, various, if you like, contractions of consciousness. There's actually a really good description of this in the book of Mirdad, which was for me several years after this realization. I actually read this book and was astounded by his description, because that was exactly how it had been revealed, let's say. So the 2 spheres I've added that are nested within the spheres of light, I've labeled them now spiritual, physical, mental, emotional. And there's a reason for that, which becomes a bit clearer on the next and final slide. But the Trinity that's often talked about in terms of consciousness, you might refer to it as physical, non-physical, and metaphysical. Metaphysical, the silence. Non-physical, the silence. Metaphysical, the spheres of light. Physical, the form. In my terminology, or our terminology, infinite silence, spheres of light, and form. This Trinity has many names, many ways of it being expressed. And what I've shown here, the white is the absolute. The top sphere, it's bounded by that, it touches the edge of silence, and the others are nested in it, but I've drawn them out just so that we can see them. What's Dawn saying? So each nested sphere is a further contraction of the previous contraction, and so on. Yes, that's exactly what I said. I don't know if you heard me say that, but that's pretty much what I said. And all spheres of life are nested within one another. And as I say again, I'll just say again, there's a beautiful description of that in the book of Mirdad, which, as I say, astounded me at the time, because this is exactly how it was realized. So looking at these three I've got here, just three, just for the purposes of the human experience: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, kind of key parts of the human experience. And phenomena now are starting to emerge by virtue of we've created time, we've created space, we've created form. And all these are essential for the human. All these are essential for the human experience. Yes, indeed, like a pie chart, but it's meant to be completely nested. So all these are necessary for experience. Now, I'm going to move now to the fourth and final slide, and there's quite a lot of information on here, folks. So I just want to forewarn you of that. So in the beginning is where the silence is. Yes, that's fine, Ashley, sir. In fact, I would go as far to say the message from the silence was, in the beginning was the end. In the beginning was the end. What that means is it's all here now. It's all here now. So let's move on to slide 4. And here, this is where the human experience gets very confused. I just want to, rather than you trying to read it all, let me kind of try and take you through it. In the center black element of the 3 spheres, I've put some key and important words there. Egoic belief stroke self-obsessed thought. Let me talk about that first. You could say the human experience, the egoic identity, is the universe with a Y-O-U, self, small self, ego self, universe, is a thought obsessed with itself. Is a thought obsessed with itself. That's a contraction of that first divine thought. The choice to create experience. Let there be spheres of light, let there be form. This egoic identity is a very heavy contraction of that. It becomes self, small s, self-obsessed. And as I've said already, it is space and time bound. You need to have the boundaries of space and time. And it also identifies with the form, the physical form, and attaches itself to that and believes in that. It believes this form and the experience of the form to be its reality and its only reality. All of the absolute has now been forgotten, and hence we get egoic identity, and hence we get suffering. It is the overlay of this egoic identity onto experience that creates suffering. So it turns out the fundamental block to self-realization, big S, self, the infinite silence, the fundamental block, listen to this carefully, is the belief that you are not that infinite silence, that infinite self, that isness. This one belief, this one flawed belief that you are not that, not only blocks the realization, but it is the fundamental cause of suffering. And indeed, within that one belief, nested within that one belief, is all other beliefs, all of which are just different manifestations of the suffering. So the fundamental key, it then turns out, to the realization goes like this: drop this belief, this false belief, totally, utterly, completely. Then the attachment with it drops, the identity with it drops, and the self is inevitably realized. And it's inevitably realized because you, as in the non-personal and true you, are already that infinite silence. Just have a quick drink here. When this belief is dropped, self-realization is inevitable. In fact, it's inevitable anyway. If there's one inevitability in the universe, it's this: that you, as in the true non-personal you, are already the realized self. But this single belief that you're not that blocks it from your, let's say, field of view, or from the experiential realization. And thus we come to the great opportunity of life in the form, and why, if you like, a good reason why the Absolute chooses to create the experiences. It gives itself the opportunity to realize itself whilst in the form. So then we have the apparent kind of contradiction of the Absolute, the everything, and the no thing all at once. In truth, it is only the Absolute, the no thing, that is the real. This you don't need to believe me on. In fact, I encourage you not to believe anything I say. When it becomes experiential, then you will know. Then you will know, and then there will be no doubt. Then there will be no doubt. So this central black text there in the three spheres essentially is the cause of suffering. And within the human domain, we get lots of experiences. And I've just listed, I mean, the list is vast. I've put some physical sensations there, from pain to bliss, from hot to cold, from health and memory, and I'll come on to that in a moment. I've also put something called satsang flu, but all of it is sensational. And what I mean by that, it involves sensations, whereas the Absolute is beyond sensation, it's the insation. More on the physical in a moment. On the left-hand bottom circle, I've put mental incessant thoughts. That's just a very contracted energy that's become obsessed with itself. And I've also listed what's referred to, it's actually, I came across it first many years ago in the Conversations with God books, and I still find it to be a useful point of reference for people. And it's called the 5 Natural Emotions. And you'll see I've put a link on there. You won't be able to click on the link, but you can Google it. The 5 Natural Emotions. It's a very good description of all human emotion. And the 5 natural ones are on the left-hand side there: love, grief, anger, envy, fear. And actually all of them are outpourings of love and fear. And even love gives, in the context of this domain now, can give rise to fear. And that's all explained in that link. Very beautifully, I have to say. The other side of the 5 natural emotions, which is the bits after the slashes, are if these emotions are not allowed to be expressed, not embraced, to run through and simply witnessed, what they become is a much more contracted version of themselves. So love becomes attachment, grief becomes depression, anger becomes rage, envy becomes jealousy, fear becomes panic. The repression of the natural emotions, the lack of embracing of them, creates a really dense overlay of suffering. And that comes from the belief that you're not this self, and thus the energy contracts and contracts and contracts, and we use these words to describe them, and these become unnatural emotions. They are, if you like, the ones that lead to conflict, that ultimately leads to war. This is all beautifully described in that link. Do have a look at that after the stream. So I just wanted to kind of cover that, and then I've added dreams in there. I could have equally have put dreams in the top sphere as well, but I wanted to put it there for now, simply because a large proportion of dreams are to do with the human experience, and either to do with being a stressful day or something deeply buried in your past. And so I've put it in the mental emotional field for that reason. There's another level of dreams that comes from what Jung called the collective unconscious. What's Dawn saying? So, is it the first pure thought that gives rise to the core belief? So in self-realization, is there only pure thought? Yeah, so it's the contraction of that, it becoming identified with itself, and that comes from the birthing into the form, or the appearance of energy as form, and then that getting identified with itself, and that's what arises, gives rise to what we call belief, that contraction. It believes it is in that. So in the self-realization, I would go as far to say that in the absolute, and it's not a state, stateless state, the isness, there is no what you would consider to be thought there in the traditional sense. But an inspiration somehow, let's put it that way, emerges. I'm making a distinction here between thought and inspiration. Somehow an inspiration emerges from that to create experience, and this would be what you're referring to as the first pure thought. Dawn. What's Deborah saying? We're always experiencing the moment. Correct. But the only time we ever experience is now. We never experience anything other than now. However, and hence why a lot of these words are on this slide. If I go to the health and memory one in the right hand sphere, the suffering that most of us have experienced, and many people around the world suffer a very high percentage, is because we base our reality, our experience, and that appearance of here now on emotional memory that is flawed. We believe that we were that traumatic experience or whatever it was, and so life is built from this false belief, and that all bodies, unless there is a realization has fully anchored and occurred, are carrying to some degree or another an energetic imprint memory of all the experiences, and the belief that they are the story of those experiences. And dependent on the degree of identification with that depends on how you're experiencing life. If the identification is light, then life may be on the whole fairly, flowing, fairly graceful and so forth. If it's dense, then there's heavy suffering going on, and it's all rooted in memory. And then this whole thing about past, present and future, instead of being here now, we're forever looking backwards, and then we're projecting future, the idea of future, from this limited and flawed memory state that is incomplete and actually ultimately flawed about the essence of who you are. And actually, and that's why I've put it with health, many health problems, physical health problems, come from the unreleased, pent-up, energetic memory that we're all carrying around, even if it's unconscious. More on that when I come to some people's experiences. So that's why health and memory's there. Then in the top sphere, I've got a whole host of other things. Again, the list here is vast of phenomena. And these phenomena are a bit different in character and style to the lower two spheres. These phenomena are much more about appearing to take one beyond the form, the identification with the body. And I've covered them in a variety of ways, from loss of identity, loss of perceptual markers, full body vibrations, kundalini energy, macabre activation, the reconnection, insights, you name it. And the whole host of gamut of clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, clairaudience, out of body experiences, astral travel, spirits, visions, voices. The range of these is huge. What's Dawn saying? Is this energetic memory, is this what is commonly termed karma? Yeah, I think that would be quite an accurate way of putting that, Dawn. Although ultimately it's not real, but we create the experience of it being real by believing in it. So I remember when you asked me that question on the forum, the pointing I would generally offer there is that there is no karma. But if you believe that there is, then you will create the experience of the karma rather. Yeah, farmer was maybe a good word there, because you farm your own experience. You believe in that, and then you create from that space, and it's not very pleasant. Yeah, so what's Debbie saying? So is it wrong to say your experiences have made you? by doing so, you're attracting to yourself previous experience instead to not associate with any of these. Good awareness here, Debbie. So people do say this, oh, my experiences have made me. Well, it depends on who you think you are. If you think you are your body and your story, then that would certainly be experientially your experience. However, who you really are is not that. You are the absolute, the non-personal, realized self. So now, let me look at the second part. So by doing so, you are attracting yourself to your previous experience. Exactly. You keep on reliving the past and you keep on reliving similar experiences until you get it that you're not that. So don't associate yourself with any of these experiences of the past. Don't get attached to whatever is present even here now, and don't try to project from those experiences into a future. Instead, trust only in the absolute itself. Was it Jolene? Sorry, I thought it was you, Dawn, but anyway, that's fine. I know there was an answer about it on the forum, and that I've just kind of repeated it. Good, Debbie. I'm glad that you see that. So, and then there's also an observation from Ashleisha, thoughts creating your reality. Yeah, if you believe in them, then you are going to create a reality that is suffering. And so the invitation is to step beyond the thought forms, to be the silent witness to all phenomena. The silent witness to all phenomena. You'll still have this form, this body. The beingness of it is still there. But when one is not identified with that as who you are, and the attention is rested in and as the silence, then the suffering drops. Let me say something a little bit about these spiritual experiences, because as you start to, the nature of this cycle, and it's a self-fulfilling cycle, all experience, it turns out, all experience is a pointing back to the true self. Embodied within every experience is an invitation back to that self-realization. What you eventually come to see is that actually all of it is being watched or witnessed. And sometimes the experiences get very strong or deep suffering to help you, it's coming from this space to help you drop the identification. What's Lee saying? Does it always create more to just remain in the absolute than to use your thoughts to create your reality? I'm not sure I understand the question. Lee, does it always create more to just remain in the absolute? And yeah, I'm not sure I'm following what you're trying to say there. Maybe you could just clarify that a little bit for me, and I'll carry on. If you could just kind of just draw that out. There's various ways I could go with that, and I'm just not entirely sure what it is you're trying to say. Look at that spiritual sphere. Many people have experienced some degree of these, from being it visions, out-of-body experiences. By the way, dreams are also out-of-body experiences. maybe some clairvoyance or some clairsentience or claircognizance. Maybe there's been an insight that's come out of nowhere, like you just knew something even though you didn't know that you knew. Or maybe the Kundalini energy has been activated apparently out of nowhere. Or maybe you've had an experience of being absolutely not knowing who you are. All these, let's say, in the spiritual domain, are another form of invitation. They're not it in itself. You can easily become identified with these, just as you can become identified with your thoughts and emotions. So you can become identified with things like saying, I am a clairvoyant, or I am clairaudient, or this is who I am, or I am a medium, or, you know, my focus is on Kundalini energy, or I do astral traveling. The truth of the matter is, you're not these either. You can become identified with these and thus still suffer, because you're seeking more and more experiences. Some of these can be experienced as very beautiful, and some, depending on your egoic overlay, can be very painful. And the Kundalini arising is a classic example of that. The experience of that, the range of that, is vast, from blissful to quite painful, and pretty much every phenomena in between. And much is said about it, but it's still not the self. Still not the self. It's just an experience. It's a different type of experience, but it's still an experience. There's something that is observing or witnessing every single experience, whether it's in the spiritual domain, the mental emotional domain, or the physical domain. And that's why I started the stream this way, was to look at this witnessing with the attention placed in and as the silence that witnesses every single phenomena. And so when you're not identified with the phenomena, the form is still here. Yes, thoughts may still come, but you're not identified with them. And hence the suffering drops. Right, let me just look at Lee's. I think she's rephrased the question for us. I feel like I can choose to go into the silence and just allow life to flow, which is what I am now doing, or choose thoughts to create a greater reality. Access consciousness. Okay, is the first better. Okay, so here's the thing. Self-realization, big S, self-realization, is a choice. As far as the human domain, it's actually a choiceless choice ultimately, because you are this self, but you have the opportunity in the form to choose to follow the calling that's emerging naturally from within, to realize who you really are. It's not a gift, it's a choice. It's a choice. Will you follow the calling of your heart, or will you follow the meanderings of ego mind? That in essence is the choice. So then Lee goes on to say, so it's a choice. It is correct, that, Lee. And from that space, yes, life will flow, and what will happen naturally without any effort, so to speak, is that insight, inspiration, information will come forth, present itself to you, and it will feel uplifting, inviting, inspiring, and so on. This one you can trust. The other one that you're pointing at is going with pure thought-based, no, sorry, not pure thought, thought-based reality. I've taken the word pure away from that. Thought-based reality, in this context, in the human domain, is much denser and is going to ultimately lead for suffering, because you're just choosing to chase after more and more experience. You're not happy until that experience has happened, and then there's another experience that has to be, and something else, and something else, and ego ultimately is never satisfied. And so this is just another form of suffering. That's just another form of suffering. If you go experience chasing, I'll be happy when, it's just another form of experience. Even if the experience itself feels great at the time and then it passes, it's impermanent. The higher choice is always to go with the truth, the absolute truth of who you really are. I could talk about each of these for hours, and I'm conscious that we've already been going an hour and a quarter. So what I want to do now, having sort of set this very broad context and then looked at how the whole experience field emerges and how one gets identified with it. Sorry, I don't know what that is. There's a message come up there. I'm not even sure what it is. The how one gets identified with it and thus creates suffering. I just want to pick out a few people's experiences that they've agreed for me to share, and I'm going to do this very briefly. Very briefly. Just to give you a pointing as to why every experience is ultimately an invitation back home to the self. I'm going to start with Lynn, who's on stream. Thank you to Lynn for allowing us to share this. If you're watching after the stream, in fact even on the stream now, you might be able to see it. I've put a link to Lynn's experience on the website. It's called From Messenger Cancerous Tumor to a Deeper Experience of Truth, or something like that. In short, Lynn was diagnosed with, I think it was colorectal cancer, and we ended up having a couple of sessions on Skype witnessing what was happening to that and why it was happening from the silence. And because Lynn was totally open to whatever was in her highest truth, by the end of the second session, we had both realized that something really profound had happened. Some massive emotional energy had been released. Lynn felt it at the time of the second session, and later that evening, I had a very clear confirmation of this tumor, which was quite large, being, if you like, lasered from the silence. I'm really summarizing the experience here. A week or two later, or whenever it was, Lynn had confirmation, medical confirmation, that the tumor had completely disappeared and she was totally clear. Call it a miracle, call it whatever you want to call it. The deeper truth there was that what happened was that Lynn chose to witness, to go into the silence. Admittedly, whilst I was there helping her, but it was her that did it. To witness what it was that this experience, this emergence of this cancer was trying to show her. And that was transformed just by the power of the silence alone. and embraced thus a deeper truth. 2 sessions. And why was it so fast? It was because of the openness of Lynn to her truth. Just one example of a physical experience that brings a deep pointing to truth. Read the full story if you want to know more. I could spend a whole evening just on that one. It was an invitation, exactly, Dawn. It was an invitation. Lynn's word for it was messenger. That was her words, not mine. It was a messenger. So that's Lynn's experience. I'm going to go to yours now, Dawn. Dawn's experience, and again, I'm going to have to be really brief on this, was having committed to, I think it was an online spiritual program, something to do with Shaktipat energy, ended up having a Kundalini experience awakening. And in short, that was both a surprise and also led to a lot of trauma being brought forth in the body to her conscious experience, that perhaps up to that point she hadn't realized how deeply that was being carried. And through various mechanisms, online support, finding some trauma release experiences, started to come to terms with what that was showing, and then eventually came about a year ago to experience the infinite silence through the meditation on the website. And a combination of that support from her husband, support from other people, the trauma release exercises, and then ultimately the witnessing that she'd started to observe for herself and then found more deeply with the silence, has helped her move beyond that and to realize that as powerful as a Kundalini awakening is, there's something beyond that, and this something is actually no thing. Much is said about Kundalini, Kundalini this, Kundalini that. You can go to Kundalini awakening classes and so forth, but it's still not it. It's an experience, and as I say, it can vary from blissful to painful. So I just want to sound a slight note of caution when it comes to this whole Kundalini thing, because there's so much information out there and a lot of it is confusing and a lot of it is misunderstood. Kundalini awakening is not self-realization, and if approached from a space of non-awareness, it can lead to quite traumatic experiences. Any of, let's say, of these higher energy experiences, whether it's Kundalini, Merkaba, reconnection and so forth, turns out these will emerge naturally. Turns out these will emerge naturally as your awareness deepens and shifts. So you don't need to go chasing them, so to speak. I'm not saying these things are wrong. There's no such thing as right and wrong in this context. But if you like, the higher approach for you, or the simpler or more direct path, is to go with awareness. And then from that space, as the Kundalini does arise, and it's an essential part of the process, as is the Merkaba activation and so on, these will occur. These will occur, but they're not it. The absolute is it, and that's what you already are. So that's a very brief coverage of Kundalini, and I can see that Dawn is saying exactly. So don't get lost in these higher experiences. they're great gifts, they're beautiful, they're there to show you something. Look into them. What is it that it is you are being shown by this experience? The next one I want to cover is from, I mean, many people have spoken to me about this one, but just going to use Simon, who's on the stream, as an example. We talked about it at the time. Simon's had this experience where, completely kind of not knowing who he was, waking up kind of almost in a sort of, like he'd gone offline. Not sure who this body was, what this was, in a kind of void space. Not necessarily being able to function properly. Why does this happen? It happens as you're deepening into the realization of the self. There's an essential part of the process of the disidentification with body, mind, ego, attachment, identity. Sometimes it's necessary for you to be taken offline from mind, thought, identification. And this will often manifest as, I have no idea who I am, what I'm doing here, what's this body, who are these people. But just if that happens to you, just allow that to happen. Just let that experience be there. It too is being seen or witnessed from the silence. And in time, normal function will be resumed. It's like some rewiring has taken place. Like some rewiring has taken place. So that's that one. That's the top one in the loss of identity void. And I've put that right up there because that's actually one of the key ones in relation to dropping the mind-body identification. Excuse me, just need a drink. Dropping the mind-body identification, an essential part. But that song in the 80s, it goes, you must be out of your brilliant mind. You must be out of your brilliant mind. This is true for self-realization, but not as in mad, but as in not identified with it. So that's Simon's experience. And then the other one I've picked out is a chap called Ben. I don't think he's on the stream, who wrote a question to me a few months back. And he was using meditation. I'm not sure if it was the infinite silence meditation, but anyway, he realized if he was like on the silence, he could sense almost, so to speak, the silence was there. And then there was this great fear and thought was coming in and getting concerned that it would, concluding that it would die, the body would die. This experience is an important one, and that's hence why I've included it, because one thing that happens as one is approaching, so to speak, if I can use time, the realization, the greatest fear of ego emerges. And the greatest fear of ego is its demise. Its demise. Ego fears its demise. And this often will show up as one is close to touching the realization. But there is no fear that is greater than the silence. And the resolution of this is simply to face that fear head on. Witness it from the silence. And you will find as you trust only in the absolute, that fear will melt and it will transform and it will pass, and there will be no longer a fear of this death. And as that happens, the realization is then inevitable. What's Deborah saying? If you have an awakening before your prana and apana have emerged fully through your chakras and energy body, you can have a trauma. Yes, indeed. And that's certainly, why some people have traumatic experiences. These energies are built up and then they suddenly emerge. And because there's still a lot of, let's say, dense energies, emotional memory being carried around in the body, all this is like the circuitry now is trying to run at a higher level, and all of this baggage, energetic baggage, is being carried around, and it's coming to the surface. Now, if you identify with the baggage, it's going to be very traumatic. If you see, however, the emergence of the baggage as an opportunity to release it, then it will transform your experience. Because these experiences that we call traumas, or an emergence that happens with some spiritual energies, isn't there to challenge you, isn't there to beat you up, it's there to be released. And the only tool ultimately you really need is your awareness and the trust in the silence. That's all. Live stream 11. By the way, top right hand corner of the stream, there's a little I button. And whether you're watching live or afterwards, if you click on that, I've put links to various key live streams. Live stream 11, transmuting fear into love. That's the one to release all of this. Not because I say so, but because that is an inevitable realization that comes with the realization. So that's 4 quite different experiences. And I trust you can see now with this kind of broad picture, starting from, shall we say, the position of absolute, and then diving down into various contractions, how easy it is to get identified with experience, but then how in every experience there's an opportunity to realize the self. And hence the title of the stream, Beyond Phenomena, from Awakening Experiences to Absolute Self-Realization. Turns out it's not just Kundalini awakening or the macabre activation or siddhis or clairvoyance. Not just these, every experience is an awakening experience. It's just a matter of where you're looking at it from. Let's just look at these couple of questions and then I'm going to draw this bit to a close. Thank you. I needed to hear that. I've had that. Read the ego's greatest fear. Yeah. Okay, good. That's a good awareness, Sandy. And with that awareness and the awareness now that you are the absolute, it can be faced and released. What's Dawn saying? Is that core fear of death there because ego again is an invitation? Yeah, actually that is the key role of ego. It gets a bad press, does dear old ego. But actually its principal function is to bring you back to yourself, because ultimately ego collapses in on itself like an atomic bomb. It implodes before it explodes. So ego will ultimately, the weight of it will get so heavy it'll implode, and then there'll be an explosion of awareness. It's a signpost, correct. And there is only life. So good awareness there, Dawn. So just to bring this to a close, I'm going to go straight back to slide 1. And here you are. Here you are. Where we started. Beyond phenomena. We get attached to the experiences, we get identified with the experiences. Suffering is inevitable. We embrace the experiences, we witness the experiences, but do not become the experiences. Self-realization is inevitable. Okay, folks, enough words. Enough words. Well done for staying with that. What we've just covered, if you like, is a rapid course in self-realization. And the fundamental part of it is that you are already this realized self. Never have you not been that. And this realized self is totally non-personal. This ego doesn't like one bit, because it's focused on small s identity. But as that belief in that one drops, the self is inevitably realized. It is so simple. It is so simple. Simple even beyond the idea of simple. Because you're already it. And it's simply a matter of where the attention is placed, and then the attention itself merges into and as the silence. No effort required. No effort required. Let's have a meditation to close, and then we'll see if there's any questions after that. Thank you so much for listening to all of that. Let's have a meditation to close. So it's just simply closing your eyes. And bringing your attention back to your body. And as your attention rests on your body, be open to the experience of spheres of light. The pure, universal sense I am. Pure beingness. And as your attention rests on this aliveness, this beingness, know now that it can do so because it is witnessed or seen from the infinite silence, the only level of awareness that is capable of witnessing this. So simply allow your attention to merge with, become the silence. Letting everything else go now. Just trusting totally the infinite silence that you are. The permanent presence of the silence. Eternal essence. Absolute awareness. Pure presence. Nothing else matters now. Just this. Just this. Isness. All phenomena and experiences melting automatically, drawn into, merging with the silence. Surrendering totally to what is here now. No effort required. Simply present here, now. In silence, you will realize your truth. In truth, you will realize you are silence. All that I am is all that am I. Here, you, the true you, are. Nowhere to go. Simply now, here. Ever present, ever presence. Be still. And know. Here. It is. Oneness. absolute, beyond phenomena. Timeless, formless, beyond space, pure knowing. Nothing, no thing. Here. Nothing here but this. This simply is. Insatiation. You never left here. Always here. Now. No. attention can rest in and as this isness, this infinite silence, always. Your choice to embrace this. So keeping your attention rested in and as the silence. In a few moments I will ring the singing bowl. Three times. And I'll just put the harp on for a minute or two, folks, just to let you come out of the meditation. When the moment's right for you, open your eyes, and I'll come back on screen just to see if there's anything more that anybody wants to share or ask. So back in a few moments. So welcome back, folks. I can see a few comments have popped up there. Yes, indeed, Ashleisha, gratitude to everybody who has participated on this stream, whether you're subscribed to the channel or watching just simply as an observer, or maybe watching the replay of the recording. Namaste. Thank you for being open to this. As I said early in the stream, don't believe a word I say, for truth is an experience, not a belief. And when it emerges, you will know. You will know. Let's just have a quick look at the comments here just to see if there's... Oh, I'm glad to hear the kids have knocked out. Ashleisha, give you a break. What's Asha saying? My goodness, I think I went into another parallel reality. Or maybe felt like a lucid dream. I was gone. Just look at that a bit further, Asha. Who was the I that was gone? Don't need to answer that. But just look at that. Who was the I that was gone? Who was the I that was gone? Namaste to Christine as well. Ashleisha saying, fade into nothingness in meditation. That is exactly the experience here. In fact, it's the constant experience. Yes, there's a form, there's a body. It is seen, it is witnessed, and it's great to have. The no-thingness, though, is the constant awareness. What's Lynn? Thank you to each of you and those not signed in or observing silently. Indeed, exactly that, Lynn. Elizabeth saying, thank you also for your input along with everyone who contributed. Thank you, Philip, for a truly wonderful teaching. Everybody's welcome. You know, sometimes these kind of pointings to spiritual truth are called teachings, and it's a limitation of language or words, really. And sometimes we need to use that word. But also it's important for me to state that actually in truth there's nothing for you to learn about ultimate truth, for you are already it. And as it is realized, all the awarenesses come with that. So the pointings, the signposts, aren't about learning so much as a remembering, or an invitation to remembering. You're welcome, Leah Tilda. Sandy, you're very welcome too. Of course not, I put it on your wall. I'm not quite sure what that means, Ashleisha, but never mind. Namaste to you, Lewis. That felt very much like the falling into love is dawn saying into the heart, and the I thought is realized to be the heart, indeed, the infinite I. The infinite I. Curtis, you're welcome. Tracy Carney, beyond words, beautiful. Thank you so much, with much love and gratitude. You're very, very welcome. You're very, very welcome, Tracy. And to you, Andy. So my personality was gone. Exactly, Asha. Bingo. That's the one you're looking for. Drop that one. It was never you anyway. And the form of Asha will still be here. But now the suffering can drop. So take that invitation. Embrace that as a pointing, a deep pointing. Shunyan, you're welcome also, and Lewis. And Deborah, thank you for all of your contributions. I know some added more than others, but it doesn't really matter. Some great contributions. Yes, it's a delight for me to be able to share, and I'm so delighted that so many of you are open to this. You know, on my wisdom cards that many of you have these things, I've just realized I've got some here on the front. There we go. Whoops, that way. It says, self-realization, life's greatest gift. Life's greatest gift. From life unto life. And you, my friends, are life. Life eternal. The non-personal self. This is the one that you've been looking for. And it's been here all along. How cool is that? Hidden in plain sight. Yeah, Tracy. Oh yes, so thank you to Dawn there. Well, thank you for inviting Tracy along, Dawn. Can you please explain further? I took another personality in the dream of reality. Yeah, so the pointing is that we think that we are the personality, the personhood, or the, you know, the body and the story of the body, otherwise known as ego. And it's the identification, the attachment and belief that we are that and the story of that that creates the suffering. Dropping that identity completely doesn't mean all the experiences have gone. It just means the identity with it has dropped. Then the self is realized. And now you're no longer controlled by the story. You're coming from a place of truth, Asha. Who you really are. And it's like, sometimes I refer to it as a diamond. If the absolute was a diamond, just a metaphor, and then you are the whole diamond, but you can get lost in the idea that you're a facet of it, the form of Asha, when actually you're the whole. You're the whole diamond. Rumi put it this way: you are not a drop in the ocean, but the entire ocean in a drop. You always have been the non-personal, absolute self. Hopefully that covers it for you, Asha, but if you want to ask any more, feel free to do so. Let's just have a look. Any other comments? Yes, in plain sight, just never noticed. What's Ashley saying? Use the separation on this physical plane, but when true realization happens, nothingness is there indeed. Whoa! Sorry, I've just spun my thing around there. I'm having to look at the comments on my phone. It's just easier that way. So yeah, is there anything else anybody wants to ask or share before we come to a close? I was thinking of doing the next stream, let me see, 7th of December, which is a week from today. The focus of that one, although we could spend several more streams on everything I've shared today, but the focus of that one is the focus of that one is going to be being a mirror to truth. Being a mirror to truth, the absolute self, in other words. And I wanted to encapsulate in that the whole subject of forgiveness, and the understanding that one is the absolute makes the whole thing of forgiveness so much simpler. Let me just see if I can see. I can't see the comments on my phone anymore for some reason. I'm just going to see what you're saying there, Asha. Just bear me a second, I need to just check that. Right, okay, what was it you were saying? But I took on another personality. Right, well, just to clarify that a bit further, Asha, you took on another personality? If you took on another personality, then that wasn't the self. That was just another form of egoic identity, or the ego trying to hang on. There are characters, different personalities in there, feel groggy. Okay, I understand a bit clearer now what you're saying, Asha. These other personalities, these other characters, were just other manifestations that aren't the absolute. So the key is simply to witness those. Know that they are not you either. Just simply observe them. Trust only in the absolute. To understand what I'm saying there a bit more fully, listen to live stream 11. Live stream 11. It explains that in great depth. Some of these things manifest to try to sort of trick you or prevent you from going deeper into the self. So just simply don't place any trust in them. Just witness, just observe from the silence, and it will all eventually fall away. And the only thing that will be left is truth. But do listen to live stream 11, and do ground yourself, do drink some water. Anything else from anybody else? I think it's probably been going... Oh, hang on. Dawn's saying something. Ashley should use the separation as in using the finite apparent structure like an appendix and nested appearance. Yeah, that's okay, Dawn. You see all of the manifestations, you know, the knowingness of the absolute is here, yet there is still the appearance of the form and his experience. So you can just allow that to be there, to embrace it, to embody the silence, and then just keep the knowingness and trust in and as the silence, and then things flow more gracefully. Like a movie, yeah, like a movie. Using it as a gift, exactly, and not being used by it. When you become identified with it, then you're lost in it. Instead, it's a gift that allows the experience of the absolute. All answers on what we experience is not wrong, it's just a process and just exactly that. Live stream 11, Tracy, you'll find on the channel. I'm sure Dawn will send it to you anyway, but also on my website, which is gatewaylocation.org, gatewaylocation.org. Across the top bar, there is a live streams link. And every single live stream gets posted on there. You can scroll down and watch it there. So that's another way of finding it. Okay, we've been going for 2¼ hours. That's really quite a long time, folks. And I know that other people have got other things to do. So I'm going to draw this to a close. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you've got something from this, please do like and share the video. It'll be recorded and live on YouTube as a recording within about an hour, I think. It might take a bit longer, but about an hour. But if you like and share, it just means more people get the message. It's a free resource. And self-realization, that's what's going to help us all make the shift to a more graceful experience on this planet. Namaste. I'll put the harp on to finish. If there's anything really urgent, I will come back. And Asha, if you want to ask any more questions, please do so. Also, I'll be extending the opportunity for more people to join the forum on the website. So yeah, namaste. Have a great weekend, folks. And I've just realised I forgot to say, folks, somebody just reminded me, I am at the monastery on Sunday, opening the meditation in the nave at 11:15 and another session during the day.